Hello guys, how's it? Welcome to Shooting the Shit with Jeremy, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything, anyone and everyone. Enjoy the show. How's it guys? Hello. Welcome to episode 3 and thank you guys for tuning in again and checking us out and listening to all the craziness that I have in my mind and in my head and that I'm spewing out to you guys, and hopefully it's been entertaining for the least. Maybe I've helped you and you guys are able to take a little bit of what I've said and what I'm trying to share with you guys and make the world a better place, make yourself a better person, and just, have some fun and enjoy, at least, get a good laugh out of what I'm telling everybody. So, majority of my adult life, I've been some sort of coach or teacher and instructor. I coach high school swimming for 15 years, took a little break. Now I'm back coaching high school swimming again. I coach learn to swim programs for the county of Kauai and privately, actually, all over the island. For 20 plus years. I was a lifeguard and CPR and AED instructor for a good 10-12 years, something like that. So a lot of my adult life was around swimming pools, coaching, teaching, water-based water activities, surf lessons, all that kind of stuff. The reason I bring that up and why I'm going to talk about it today is because a lot of coaches think that there's one way to teach something and there's only one way to learn something, and I hated that. I had coaches in high school and growing up that it was, this is how they taught, this is how everybody should learn, and too bad, too sad, you either get it or you don't. And I hated that. So I always had this theory that I would make a good coach. I remember in high school, when I was swimming in high school, telling my friends and teammates that one day I'm going to be a better coach. I can explain it way better than the coaches. I know I can make you understand it a lot better. I didn't know really at that time what I meant by it, but I knew there's more ways to skin a cat, I guess, would be kind of like an analogy we would use. Excuse me. But with that said, it's, everybody learns differently. Everybody teaches differently. Not everybody's going to learn by sitting and listening to somebody talk. Not everybody can learn by watching somebody demonstrate it. Not everybody can learn by hearing how it's done or somebody showing you how it's done. Everybody's different. And I've always prided myself on being able to have all kinds of different ways to explain and to teach stuff. Granted, like I said earlier, it's water-based stuff is my forte, but it goes to say with anything: baseball, football, mechanics, flight school, whatever. If you're teaching something and you are worth your weight in gold as an instructor, as a coach, as a teacher, you have to know different ways to teach it, because your students aren't gonna all listen and learn the same way. I would always tell my high school kids when we were learning a new stroke, be like, okay, let's try it like this. And you could see the ones that would get it, and then you'd look at the ones that are like, hey, you don't get it? That's okay, don't worry, let's try it like this. I would ask them, what are you into? What do you listen to? What do you watch? What do you do? And I would try to find a common ground, and they'd be like, oh, I like to dance, and I'm like, all right, cool. So you ever seen breakdancing? Do you know the worm? Yeah, okay, well, you're gonna make your body like the worm, like you were breakdancing. And he or she would be like, oh, okay. They would get it right away. The next kid would still be looking at me, didn't quite get it yet. I'm like, all right, how do you, what helps you learn? And they're like, I like to see it done, demonstrate it. I'm like, all right. I would jump in or have one of the older students, or the more seasoned vets jump in and teach them and show them, and then they could pick it up. And, that might help. And then the other kid might be, well, you need to move my arms, or show me show me the motions, move my arms in that motion. So we would do that. And that's just a small example of little things that I used to do as a coach. And not just me, I had an awesome coach that I coached with for years and taught with for years, and me and her could finish each other's sentences. We knew what each other was doing, and we gelled really good together. So we coached so well together. So we had a lot of kids come through our programs. And when we would do stuff like that, we would take these kids that basically couldn't swim, couldn't literally, I had a kid that couldn't even swim across the pool. By the time he graduated, he was swimming the 500 freestyle at the KIF championship, which, you know, I could go into all that, but that's a pretty big deal. And that had to do with how we coached and how we taught, and we made it easy for the students, the athletes, to learn. We didn't just say, hey, this is what you got to do, we're going to demonstrate it to you once, and then you can do it and you can pick it up. So, you know, and the same goes with when I was teaching lifeguarding classes, right? Yes, there's very strict rules that you have to follow. There's protocols, there's checklists, you know. To become American Red Cross certified lifeguard, you have to do A, B, and C in A, B, and C's order. However, they do give you leeway after and before that to use different analogies and teach different things. As long as the student can do it correctly the first time, or can do it correctly, then you could add on a little bit extra, because what they teach in the books or what they taught on the videos doesn't really always roll over into real life scenarios, right? So when we were teaching those classes and training those new lifeguards, we'd be like, hey, look, this is how they do it in the mainland, or this is how the book in the video showed you. However, if you do it like this, it'll save you time, it'll be safer, it'll get you to where you need to be, get your victim where you need to be, and it just works better, you know. But this is what we have to teach you, but this will work in a pinch too, type thing. And that I got in a little bit of trouble for here and there, because sometimes, you know, I didn't agree with what they were teaching, but I still had to follow the protocol, and I made it very, you know, well known that certain things don't work. Like, we're teaching how to save somebody in a lake and a river in Hawaii where there's oceans, right? Yes, we have reservoirs and rivers, but it's different. We weren't, you know, that was all they would teach, so we'd have to adapt it. And a lot of these things that excuse me, that I learned, and that how I taught and I teach my kids and stuff, was how I was taught and learned through the years. I would take a little bit of each one of my instructors, each one of my coaches, each one of my teachers, of how they would interact with me, other students, other athletes, and I would see what I felt. I would take what I felt worked and what didn't work, and I would try to make my own style, my own theory, I would become my own coach. You know what I mean? Like, my style of coaching worked for me, and through all those years it worked. We had some of the highest graduation rates at Learn to Swim programs for the county. We had the biggest teams for high school swimming, you know, where we would bring these kids in 6th, 7th, 8th grade and train them, so when they got to 9th grade and actually could join the swim team, they weren't so far behind. We didn't have the luxury of all those years of having age group swimmers come in and make our swim team like a lot of these coaches do. We didn't have the luxury of doing research for these lifeguard classes, these guys that are already certified. We were training and certifying guys from scratch. So there was a lot of learning that had to be done on my part by my, you know, instructors, coaches, teachers. And that's, you know, in my eyes is the view of a good, or not a view, but that is a good coach. You know, a good coach is somebody that can take the good and the bad, because you gotta have bad, right? You gotta, you know, like, hey, this doesn't work, or you can't always yell at the kids, or you can't always scream at the kids, or you can't talk to one kid the same way as you do another kid, right? Everybody's different in their learning abilities. So you got to take the good and the bad and know when to separate, and how to talk to certain kids and how to not talk to certain kids. You know, a good example of something like that is, I like to use the math or the dice analogy, right? You could take a dice and you could roll the dice, and you have a 3 and a 4 equals a 7. But you could also roll the dice and you can get a 5 and a 2, and it still equals 7. It's not necessarily how you get from point A to point B, but the fact that you got to get from point A to point B, you know what I mean? It's still 7. You're still getting from point A to point B. It's just there's different styles, there's different roads, there's different avenues, there's different, not everybody's the same. And I know for a fact that my style of coaching, and when I did this, made the athletes feel a little bit more at ease and comfortable, because they knew if they didn't get it right away, they could, one, either ask me a question or the other coaches and instructors that we were working with, and we try to explain it and get them to a better point, or explain it better or in a different way for them. Or two, they knew that eventually if I was watching them or the other coaches were watching them and they didn't pick up on it, we would pick up on it and be like, hey, you know what, maybe that didn't work for you, how about if you try this? Or maybe we have to start backwards. Instead of we start with your head, we're going to start with your hips. That kind of stuff. And with that, it also ties into coaching. We're teaching these young adults, I've had old people, young people, so we're teaching these students, these athletes, in my eyes, not necessarily to be the greatest athlete, to be the best swimmer, to be the best lifeguard, to be the greatest everything. We want to instill this sense of pride, this sense of belonging, this sense of, hey, I did it, into these athletes. Like, hey, I can do it. If I put my mind to it, I can get to that. I can do this. It's not so much as you telling the kids, all right, if you do this, this, and this, we're going to go to states, you're going to qualify, you're going to go get a college scholarship, or, if you guarantee you pass this, you're going to get a job lifeguarding on the beach, or, hey, when you guys learn to swim and you do the best you can, then, you're going to get a medal, which, if they did swim, they would get a medal. However, we didn't have any specific strokes usually they had to do. We call it the county stroke. Whatever got you from point A to point B, they would get a medal. The older kids had to do different strokes to get medals. But the point of what I was trying to get at was, as coaches and teachers and instructors, to me, it was always more important to give these students, athletes, a sense of accomplishment. Not every one of these kids that came through our doors, through our gates, wanted to go to college, wants to, get a state time, go to championships. Some of these kids were coming to us because they had whatever bad home lives, and we gave them a sense of belonging. Some of these kids, they just needed this swimming to get their mind off their schoolwork. Some of these lifeguards were coming through our doors to get certified for surf lessons. They didn't want to become lifeguards, they needed to become surf instructors, or they needed to pass towels out at the hotels, But what we did was we gave them a sense of belonging, and that they could do it from whatever age, from the 4 or 5-year-olds that we taught how to swim to, I think my oldest student I taught lifeguarding to was in his 60s, I believe, back in the day. But we're like, hey, let's get you through it. We never wanted anybody to fail. Me and my coaches, co-teachers, co-instructors, our goal wasn't to make you fail. Our goal, if you failed, to me, that was a failure on the instructor's part. If we had a low graduation rate, it wasn't the kid's fault. That was the instructor's fault. But in the same realm of things, it's okay, that negative made me go back and think and look back on what I had to do better to better myself. And why were these kids not getting it? Did I not teach them a certain way? Did they not understand a certain way? So not every coach, not a great coach isn't necessarily somebody that takes their kids to states every year. A great coach isn't somebody that, wins a Super Bowl every year, even though that's how society grades a lot of stuff. Majority of society sees greatness in coaches and teachers and instructors, but that's not, to me, that's not it. I love when my students and my teacher, or excuse me, my students and my athletes come back and they're like, hey coach, remember that time, you did this and you said this, and look, this is my wife, these are my kids. Like, they come back and they're happy and they remember those times. Those were good times for them. We made them happy. We gave them an outlook on life other than like, hey, we got to do this because we got to win. Those to me are the good coaches that instill these positive things in life. And if we could teach them a little bit of positivity and they could pass it on, it kind of ties all back into episode 1, where it's like, hey, we do that little bit extra, right? Treat your students and your athletes, and the athletes and students teach the coaches with respect, humility, and just grace, right? And that goes a long ways. I could have been having the worst day ever, and then these kids come in and they're so happy and they're like, hey coach, I asked that girl out and she said, yeah, I'm going on a date. Or, hey coach, I got an A on this thing. Or, coach, I did my PR personal record on the 500. Or the lifeguards would come back, hey Uncle Jeremy, the pool guy, I got hired on the beach, or I'm gonna be a fireman, or I got into DLNR, whatever. Those are the reasons why I coach. Those, it was never trying to be the best coach. I was never trying to win every championship. I never tried to be the big-headed guy that's like, hey, my guys went to states, my swimmers did this, my swimmers do this. There's a lot of people, athletes and coaches that talk about their athletes like that, which is cool. We need that. Certain people need to be like that. Certain athletes need to be like that. That's just part of life. But that wasn't me. And I want everybody to know that it's okay that some of the stuff you do and some of the stuff you coach and you teach and you learn and you hear is for you, it could be an outlet for you, it could be a release for you, it could be relaxing for you. You don't have to teach somebody because you want that paycheck. You don't have to coach somebody because you were the greatest swimmer in high school and somebody said you got to go teach their kids now. You don't have to do these things to be the greatest. You can do these things to make a difference, to help somebody out, to help yourself out. A lot of the coaching, I didn't realize it till I was done coaching. The kids and the students and the athletes helped me way more than I helped them. They would open my eyes and made me look at things and see things in totally different lights and totally different avenues, and that alone is crazy. Like, to think back now, like in the midst of it, just like a lot of things, you don't see it right then and there, but looking back now, it's like, man, these kids that we had, kids that came from nothing, kids that didn't have homes, that were living in their cars, that I had 15-year-old kids that were paying rent in a house. They had to work and they could only swim 2 days a week because they didn't have nowhere to live and they had to survive. But yet they would come and hang out with us, and they were the happiest, most thankful people ever. And then you get these kids that have everything. They got the brand new Tacoma in the parking lot. Their parents give them everything they want. They got a credit card with no limit, and they are the most sad, unhappy people until they walk in the gate. And then we treat everybody the same. We always treated everybody, tried to. There are instances where some of you guys probably listen to this and probably tell, he's full of shit. I remember he said this about this kid and did this to this kid and whatever. And hey, I'm not perfect. There's ups and downs, and I learned a lot, and I screwed up a lot too, and I'll be the first to admit that. Like I said, I'm not the greatest coach, but I tried to make a positive effort and treat everybody the same. That also, you got to think about when you're treating everybody the same but trying to make a positive effort, is times change, people change, the environment changes. How you taught in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, how you coached, you can't coach and teach that way again. And the great coaches catch on to that, know that, and they adapt to the athletes and the students that they're teaching and coaching. A lot of greats, coaches And like I said, not just because they win championship, but a lot of the great coaches that impacted a lot of student and athletes' lives changed and were doing it for such a long period of time because they would change with the times. They would change with the community. They would change. They would grow. Maybe change is the wrong word, but they would grow, and they would learn how to, be relevant and speak to the kids and understand how they were perceiving things, right? If you taught the same way as you began now as you did in the beginning 20, 30 years ago, you're probably not relevant. You probably don't have as many students as you would. You probably don't have the positive outcome that you were having, because these kids, they can't relate to you. You can't relate to the kids. So you have to be able to adjust and adapt and pivot. And that's also a good thing, positive, for coaching. That's what makes a good coach, is that pivot and that training. So that's another thing. But anyways, I'm kind of just rambling on. I just wanted to talk to you guys about that because with the coaching being such a big part of my life, it also opened my eyes and taught me a lot and gave me a lot of perspective. So a lot of the things I'm gonna talk about in my podcast in future and how I live my life and how I say and do things is because I was a coach for so many years, and I try to do better for everybody and try to better everybody in the best I can and give to everybody the best I can. And the coaching, it opens my eyes in a whole nother level, a whole different level. Yes, the heart problem side opened my eyes in a life and death, so to speak, but coaching opens your eyes in a whole different level, a whole different idea, a whole different realm, if you will, that I don't really know how to explain it yet. Maybe I will in a future episode, or later on down the road, where I could totally break it down for you. But that's kind of where I was going with this, and trying to give you guys a little bit of insight, right, to me, before you guys are just thinking, this guy's just rambling on. But I do, there is a madness, a reason behind my madness, and there is a lot of things that I've been through and that I'm going through that I pay attention to, and I listen to, and I watch, and I see, and I think it could help me, help a lot of people, help our community, and just help the world just to be a better place. And that's the ultimate goal, right? All my rambling and all my stories and all my ups and downs and everything that I put on here is because I want to help people. I want to help my family. I want to help my community. I want to help my students. I want to help my athletes. I just want to help everybody out. I even want to help the people that hate me, man. I got people out there. I got haters just like everybody else. That's a whole nother podcast about how to deal with haters and people that hate you. But I have nothing against that. Like, for one, you need people like that. Two, I want to help them be a better version of themselves. I might not be their cup of tea, but maybe something I say along the lines, and maybe they'll be like, hey, that makes sense. Maybe I should try it. So, I'm not here just to help people that I like and help people that want to listen to me and people that, like me. I'm here to help everybody, whether you like me, whether you love me, whether you don't love me, whether you hate me, whatever. I just want to help. Hands down, I just want to help, and hopefully this can be my avenue to help one or two people and make the world a better place. So but yeah, thank you guys again for tuning in, and hang in there, and there's more to come, and we'll talk to you guys later on the next episode. All right guys, aloha, have a good night.